Hey, this is WVLP, Valparaiso Community Radio. You can find us at WVLP.org, and you can look up our programming. You are listening to Everyday Warriors. It's a show about today's everyday heroes. We don't do athletes. We don't do politicians. We don't do politics. We don't do music stars, or we don't do movie stars. We do the real heroes that make everyday life happen. My name is Danny McGuire. I am your host, and I am the program director and department chair for criminal justice and public safety programs at Calumet College of St. Joseph in Whiting, Indiana. And today our guest is Jackie Cruz. Jackie works with me at the college, and she is an advisor to the public safety program students. And I'm going to let Jackie introduce herself and talk a little bit about herself. Jackie, go ahead. Tell us about yourself. Tell us what you do, your education background. And do you like it or not?
Hi, Danny. Thank you. Yes, my name is Jacqueline Cruz. I am the assistant director for our graduate and degree completion programs at Calumet College. But I've spent the majority of my time there being exactly the public safety advisor, recruiter, public safety person. I started at Calumet College in June of 2017, right after I earned my undergraduate degree there. I had a business of art degree in English. After I started there, like I said, I was just their advisor there and their recruiter, and kind of worked my way up and started taking on some of new roles in some of the other degree completion programs and master's programs at the college. And if I like it, yes, absolutely. I love it. I've stayed in the position that I'm in because I really enjoy working with the public safety students. Working with adult students especially is just a lot easier for me. I think I relate better to adult students than I may with some traditional students. I'm able to, I guess, understand their problems a little bit better and help them work through them and get them done, get them degrees so they can start using it.
That's great. And what is it that you like about your job in particular? Now, you and I work together in full disclosure on a regular basis, and we talk several times a week. And Jackie, truth be told, is very passionate about her job, and she's very humble, right? So what Jackie hasn't said is that she is responsible for approximately 350 police officers and full-time public safety professionals, which could be firefighters, EMS workers, correct?
Correct, yes.
So over 350 of them receiving college degrees, whether an undergraduate bachelor's of science in public safety management or a master's degree, graduate degree in public safety administration, over 350 in the last 4 years. So Jackie has done an incredible service for the people who serve us, right? Our real heroes. So thank you for that. And what is it that you really are passionate about? And I don't want you to hold back, because I know how you are. So be honest and tell the listeners what you really like, particularly my mom. Hi, Mom. I know she's listening. So she's going to want to know why Jackie's passionate about it too.
Hi, Danny's mom. No, yeah, I really enjoy, working with this particular type of student. I feel that out of all of the types of students that I work with, my police officers, my law enforcement professionals, they're facing some hard challenges personally in their work life. And to help a student who's dealing with a full-time job, a full-time life, most of them are parents with kids, and putting themselves in dangerous situations every single day. It's nice to be able to help them do what we would consider like the regular stuff, going back and getting their education. For some people, it may seem really normal and just a part of life. For a lot of my students, they started, back when they were in their late teens, maybe early 20s, and got on the job and realized how strenuous it can become, takes over your life. And they're doing the hard work to come back and do it all over again, on top of everything else that they're doing. So being able to help them do that, it makes me feel fulfilled, my little person job, I feel like, compared to what they do every day. But then getting to see them walk that stage, I absolutely love that. I love working graduation and seeing their families there, and these people walk across the stage with that sense of accomplishment, knowing that they did something that was super hard, something that they are going to be able to show off to their kids, their spouses, and be an inspiration on a different level than what they're used to. So I just love all of that. But graduation especially is a really awesome time for me. I love being able to see those students that I especially connected with in our time together. Some of them it's 2 years, some of them it's a little longer if they're doing multiple programs, and getting to see them cross that stage just feels awesome. Giving them a big hug at the end, telling them, I told you could do it. When they had those moments of self-doubt, that's just a really great feeling.
It is a great feeling. And, the one thing I love about graduation, last year was unique because of the whole COVID coronavirus issue. What Calumet College did was really, really cool. And
it was
what we
beautiful.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved it.
So the public safety programs have the largest amount of graduates that walk across that stage every year, the undergraduate and graduate. I just talked to someone at the college today, and they said that I believe we have 39 graduate students going across the stage, which is, compared to our other graduate programs, is huge. And then undergraduate, I think it was 73, which again, the next highest was like 15. And the graduate program that was next highest was 5. So that's a credit to you, Jackie, because you really keep them engaged. The last couple of years that I've been teaching here, now I've taught, this April will be 15 years for me at Calumet College, and 4 full-time years in May. So in the last 2 years that I've taught, class has become kind of group therapy, as someone who does, like intern therapist stuff. And you're catching the brunt of that too. People's days off canceled, working, 20, 30, 40 days in a row, 12, 15, 16-hour days. It takes a toll on them. So class sometimes becomes a big venting session, right? I'm tired of this and I can't stand that. So I do my best to keep them engaged, having done the job and having, the education in psychology and doing the, the intern therapy work. It's group therapy, except on Zoom. So we do kind of a telehealth group thing, and I let them do their thing, and we always circle back to get some academic stuff done. But we always conclude our classes, and I tell them, be safe, take care of yourself and your families. And if you need someone to talk to, reach out to me. And I will tell you that the cellular communication device, like I like to call the cell phone, the cellular communication device, sounds important. It rings off the hook. A text message, phone call. Hey, can I talk to you, doc? Can I, sit down with you and, maybe do some things. And there's times that I feel like it's a peer support capacity more than it's, it's not therapy for sure. Cause I immediately tell them, like, you need to see a therapist, you need to go to somebody, and I provide them with information to contact the resources, EAP for Chicago. Suburban agencies have their own EAPs, and sometimes if they can't get into an IEP, an EAP, I'm sorry, not an IEP, that's for later, EAP program, then there's other resources out there that people can go to that are set up for first responders. They feel more comfortable in that environment. So these classes sometimes become group therapy, and I know that everyone always raves about being able to talk to Jackie Cruz. Like when they need something, Jackie's the go-to person. It's true. So thank you for that. And I'm sure they are my mom and the one other listener we have will probably be really happy to hear that. So what do you think of all that? Because they tell me this all the time. Like, hey man, if I need something, I don't even talk to you. I call Jackie, and I'm like, well, that's the brains of the operation, so definitely call Jackie, right? So how do you feel about that, Jackie?
No, that obviously feels great. I'm glad that they feel comfortable to lie a bit and say I'm the brains. That's great. No, but I just think that, everything that you're speaking to is what really makes me proud to work for this program. I've said it a ton of times. Public safety program at Cal College it's not a traditional program, and we advertise that, but people think we're talking about our scheduling options and our online options. The difference is just, I think, the care that we really have for our students. I know you do it. I know all of our professors do it. Monica Lopez, Marcus Shepard, they take a lot of care and time for their students outside of just the education, because it's so much more than that. As an adult student, you're not coming back and it's not just about what you're learning in the textbook or what type of paper you're going to write. There's a lot more that's needed sometimes. And I'm absolutely happy to answer a phone call in the middle of the night or something, if that means that you have less stress going into class the next day. A lot of times they're coming to me for stuff that's different than what I'm sure they go to you for. They're asking me about their bill and like what classes they have to take and how the heck are they going to graduate on time if they have all this extra stuff to do. So being able to try to ease that burden and make it more manageable into a bite-sized piece so that they can tackle it and add it onto the to-do list. Obviously, I'm happy to do any of those things, but yeah, they go through different things than a traditional student would. I mean, as we have all seen, the past 2.5 years have been absolutely crazy with the pandemic, and it's completely turned people's lives around, especially when things are going on with the riots. We know we've had so many students who were affected, getting physically hurt or just things were happening. And I mean, to have to deal with all of that and still have to worry about your paper that you're going to write and that it's due in a couple days, that's a huge burden to take on. So any way that we can help them figure it out, tackle it, help them actually get the paper done and turned in on time, we're going to do it, obviously. If that means taking somebody step by step with how to submit something on Blackboard, let's do it. Because if that's an easy problem to fix and it'll mean that you have less worry, obviously, like, let's just get it done so that you can walk that stage and have your happy moment.
That's great. And that I always say there's other games in town, right? There's other colleges that have accelerated formats for public safety professionals, but I truly feel that some of the things that separate us from our competitors, and they're all great, they're all great programs. I have friends that teach in them or friends that have gone through them, or we even have adjunct faculty we've hired that have gone through some different programs. But I think what really separates us from the pack is the strength of our faculty. Everyone has experience as a first responder, plus the academic credential. I have a doctorate, I have 3 master's degrees, and I have 21 years of progressively responsible law enforcement experience. So I can, put a face to that theory. I can say, hey, this theory you're reading in a textbook will project itself this way, right? And I think our faculty, there's not a lot of faculty out there that are better than that. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just think that's one of the things that separates us. But the thing I think that separates us the most is, our staff, like yourself, the registrar at the school, the people who work with our students and get them to what they need. I think that it's unparalleled, and it's an incredible feeling to have people have such a positive experience, especially when they're around negative. I had one of our students called and their partner had been shot. My partner got shot. I'm having a hard time. I'm like, well, yeah, it's okay. Sure. Right. Why wouldn't you? So, and I don't know the condition of the officer or the officer. Right. But I do know that this person was having a hard time. And so I spent some time with that individual, talking to them on the phone, telling them, okay, you probably need to see a counselor. Well, can I come see you? No, because we have a dual relationship, right? Code of ethics. I can't have that dual relationship with you. I can't be your college professor and your therapist, right? It's just not right. So I said, let's, this individual was a Chicago officer. So I said, let's try EAP. And, they had a great deal of success with the EAP. So, but those things happen, don't they, Jackie? You'll get that
Absolutely.
call
all the time.
Right. I got my leg broken.
Freak you out. Like I'm texting them about, hey, we got to talk about your building. And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, I meant to get to you. This crazy, absurd thing that almost no one ever goes through happened to me last night. And I'm like, oh, well, let's dial it back. Like, don't worry about this. Let's figure out.
Right. And then I'll say, well, can I get the bill? Can I get the bill on Thursday? Right.
Right. Like yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, let's figure that out at a different time. Are you okay?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's
things happen all the time.
I want to say it's the personal relationships that we have with the people that really make them feel like they're part of the family. I mean, I went to Calumet College, my first college experience with a bachelor's degree, and it saved my life. I was in a very bad place, which leads me to my next topic, right? My son was just diagnosed with autism. He'll be 22 in June. He's profoundly impacted. I was just reading his psychological report, and it says he has the functioning level of a 3-year-old, right? And he's 21 years old. He weighs 181 pounds. And when he doesn't shave, he grows a really bright red beard, and, he's like a 3-year-old. So, and it's difficult with a child with autism too, because people will, you'll be out somewhere and, like last night we were at dinner and, he was having a meltdown because he didn't have enough strips of bacon on his burger patty, and people they kind of look like, why is that man, doing that right now? And they don't, they don't realize that there's some special need. In full disclosure, Jackie is a stepmom, correct, of a special needs boy. So that's another hero, another role, another cape Jackie wears. And, I have all the respect for her because of it, as being a father with a special needs son. My son has autism, and I will let Jackie talk a little bit about what that's like in the role of a stepmom for your husband's son, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Superwoman?
Yeah, I met my stepson's 12 years old. He just turned 12 this past December. And I met him when he was 7. That's when I came into his life. And yeah, I mean, he's absolutely wonderful. He's an awesome kid, smart as a whip, way smarter than me. He's super funny.
He's developmentally disabled, right?
Yes, he's on the autism spectrum.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah,
I knew that. I just wanted you to say that. I knew that.
Right, I forgot to add all my details in. No, he's a great kid. And yeah, being anybody who's a step parent knows that being a step parent is like a balancing act, like where am I overstepping my boundaries? Am I overstepping them? What do I have the right to say or have an opinion on? So it's definitely been it was a learning curve, learning how I can properly feel like I love this kid so dang much, but I don't want to make anybody mad about my feelings and my opinions. So learning how to put a kid first that isn't even like your child, and work around parents and everything. Luckily, we've all learned how to develop a really great co-parenting relationship. My husband and my stepson's mom are awesome, and we all learned to communicate really well, so that's always helpful. I don't have to have any headaches. I save myself those types of headaches that some people have to deal with. My stepson's wonderful, super great, really interested in a ton of different things, space, geography. The kid knows every map that exists. I don't know how he does it. Super great memory. So yeah, I'm lucky to be a part of his life, lucky to be a person in his troop that gets to be by him, learn from him.
Well, one of the things you said that I want to pick up on, and I think it's incredible, it's absolutely what makes you in particular a great person, right? And when I'm talking about a real life hero, is that it sounds like your husband's ex, your stepson's mom, yourself and your husband, you communicate, right? So you're taking that child and that child's needs and putting that first, other than, let's say, selfishness or ego. And I think, and this is just my opinion, having, been through divorce and having others involved in lives, that if you truly are someone that's not selfish and you do put the needs of the child first, usually it makes things 1,000,000% easier, maybe even 1,000,000,000% easier. I don't know. But I think the communication and not being a selfish person really, really helps. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it took some time for us to figure out the balancing act. But yes, it's really important to me. A main thing that I always like to tell my husband when we were first dating, when we first got married, was I don't really care about how you feel about some things or how anybody else feels. Like, sometimes somebody outside has to be an advocate for the child, because we can let emotions get in the way of things. We're all human, and it's hard when you love somebody so much, especially I can only imagine when it's your child. You just want the best for them, no matter what that means.
Well, it sounds like you said, even though it's not your child or it's really your child. Well, I mean, when you take on that step parent role, you're basically saying I will be a parent to this child.
Of course,
So let's not diminish your accomplishments here. And then, your stepson has 3 advocates rather than 2 advocates and an adversary, right? There's 3 advocates. So there's like 3 people advocating for your stepson when it comes to IEPs, which I said would come up later, right? Individual education plans that special needs children would have at their school. Now you have 3 advocates there fighting. And then another thing you said, which I thought was great, is that you have an outside person. I like to say it's hard to see past the forest when you're in the trees, right? When you're outside of those trees and you're hovering above, you can go, oh my God, don't go here. You're going to get smack into that tree, right? But some people don't see that. So that's an incredible thing. That makes you an incredible asset to his life and to your husband. I mean, that's what makes it go around. So, I mean, all of this comes together. Now we could see why Jackie's great, because Jackie is not a selfish person. Jackie advocates for her students to go across that stage. They're a law enforcement professional. She has passion for that. She has passion for her stepson and her husband. It's an incredible thing. So yeah, Jackie's wearing 2 or 3 capes, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. There's circling back to our law enforcement discussion. I found this website and it's called usfacts.org. And I'm looking up some numbers, and it says that in 2019, it is estimated that local police employment had decreased, state and local had decreased. Originally, it was 1,019,246, and now it's just above 1 million. It's 1,132 in 2019, and from 2008 it dropped. What in dealing with the police and listening to the reasons why they go back to school or why they don't want to continue going back to school after 1 degree, what do you think, in your professional opinion? And again, this is based on your interviews with them when you're trying to get them to go on to a master's degree or complete their bachelor's degree. Why do you think the drop off happened? Why do you think that is?
I think one of the main reasons is it's typically cost. It's expensive to go to school, and like any adult student, any adult program, going back when you have a mortgage, when you have potentially kids at the college age or in a private high school, sometimes it's easy to put themselves on the back burner and say, I'm not going to worry about me right now. I'd rather worry about all this other stuff that is, it's important for my family. I'd say that's the most thing that I get all the time. That's the most impactful obstacle for a lot of these students is getting that cost. And I know that there are options out there. Of course, there's grants and financial aid and loans, but sometimes they don't see that. They see a ticket price that they're looking at on a website, and they're like, absolutely not. I cannot afford that. There's no way. Until we start having discussions of what are your options? How can we truly manage this? Maybe we don't take a full class load. Maybe you only take 1 or 2. It might take you a little bit longer, but it'll get you done. And get you that tool in the toolbox to make more money in the future, whether that's with the police department or some other place that you decide to go, or maybe you're not even into law enforcement at all. Maybe you want to go into city planning or something like that, and having the degree is going to help you do that. Right. So it's just talking about those options and getting them on a plan or looking at it from a different point of view.
So when you talk about cost, one thing came to mind, and I wrote this in my notes. I always keep notes when I have my guests, when they say certain things, because my 50-year-old brain sometimes doesn't recognize things till well after someone says something. So one of the things you said was the cost associated makes it difficult. One of the great things about being a Chicago police officer, and I could speak from my experience, and most of our students are Chicago police officers, they have an incredible tuition reimbursement program.
Absolutely.
They pay for 2 classes a semester. And if you get an A, I think, what do they pay at the undergraduate level? It's still 100%.
Still 100% and 75% at the graduate level.
Right. Which Calumet College, right. Calumet College, we have a 25% FOP scholarship that we give to our public safety professionals. Anybody who comes in a public safety program, I think, gets it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
25% off the tuition fee. So if a Chicago police officer goes to the bachelor's program at Calumet College, they get A's all the way through, which a lot of them do because they're at the point in their life where they really want to focus on their education and get those good grades. They end up getting 100%, and then they go in the master's program. They jump right in, and they end up going through and paying nothing the entire time for a bachelor's and a master's degree. So for many of the issues that Chicago Police Department has currently, whatever those may be, that you see, in the widespread media and stuff like that, they do have some really good bonuses, that tuition reimbursement. I mean, they paid for my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate.
Beautiful.
Right. So it was an incredible experience. I mean, I want to be the superintendent, Jackie. We've had this conversation. I want to get a doctorate in leadership, and I'm going to get promoted and I'm going to be the superintendent of police someday. Well, it didn't happen that way, but I'm thankful for them. And it's my honor every day to work with people who are my colleagues. I mean, I just found out a couple of our alumni were promoted into the command staff.
Yeah, they got some good promotions there.
Right.
Absolutely.
We have about almost 4,000 alumni. I think Amy said, the president of our college, Dr. Amy McCormick. So we have almost 4,000 alumni of the public safety program in the last 20 years. And I think 90% of them are Chicago police officers. And I think over 50% or 75% have made some sort of command level when they got their master's degree. So, I mean, that's an incredible thing. So how does that lend to our suburban brothers and sisters? Some departments have the tuition reimbursement, some don't. And for those that several of our alumni and current students are suburban law enforcement professionals, and they'll take out a student loan. And I just talked to someone who's a police chief in one of our suburban areas and a deputy chief, and they're like, it's the best loan I ever took out in my life.
Yeah.
So, and then now they're giving public safety or public service forgiveness. So after 10 years, they're forgiving whatever's left on your loan if you pay a certain amount. So there's all kinds of initiatives to get people to get the money, to get the education. So
correct. There's always options. It's not black and white, and it's just understanding that the option may not be the first way you thought about it, and it may not be exactly what you want to hear. I mean, because everybody wants to hear that, it's going to be free or we're going to knock off 50%, those right. Things unfortunately are unrealistic, but there are options. And it just, sometimes we have to tweak our original plan or expectations so that we can get to where we need to go. But yeah, I mean, it does happen every day. Well, like you said, the majority of our students are CPD and they are benefiting from tuition reimbursement, which is wonderful. There are plenty who are not, and there are options for them there, and we get them through. I mean, there are other departments that do offer tuition reimbursement too, but maybe they just don't advertise it as much. So sometimes it just takes you going and talking to HR so that right. You can find out if you have those types of benefits. I've had some people who had no idea, and when I told them, let's go talk to them and see what's going on. Surprise, surprise, you get some money from your department for continuing education and bettering yourself. So, there's things out there. We just have to sometimes do the extra legwork to figure it out.
Here's another statistic, and I found this in an article, well, actually from the United States Census Bureau. I found this, and it's from the 2018 census, right? Results from a 2018 census. It says the number of degree holders in millions, right, in the United States. So in 2000, 29.8 million people, if I'm reading this correctly, had bachelor's degrees. In 2018, that was in 2000. In 2018, 48.2 million. So almost double. Double. Then they go to master's degrees and they say in 2000, 10.4 million people had master's degrees. And in 2018, 21 million. So that's double.
Yeah.
Right. So in 18 years. Then they talk about professional degrees like doctors, lawyers, people much smarter than me. Right. So, well, allegedly.
Says
right?
The doctor.
It says right. Allegedly. Well, this is like a real, like an MD, like someone who,
okay.
if you fall out, they know what to do. Like stat, give me 7 cc's of whatever. Right. I'm going to bore you to death. Right. I'm going to let's talk about differential statistics as you meet the Lord. Let's do that. Right?
Lord,
I can't. Right. I can't help you. Right. So this is those professional degrees, doctor, MD, lawyer, dentist. In 2000, 2.6 million people had a professional degree. And in 2018, 3.2 million. Right. So that really didn't go that far. Now let's talk about a doctoral degree like me, a doctor of education. Right. So the doctoral degrees in 2000, 2 million people had them. In 2018, 4.5. So over double.
Wow.
Right? I bet you didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't.
So what we tell people is that as time goes on and the society gets educated and grows, you're just benefiting yourself by going back to school and getting an education. And I know there's probably something in the International Association of Chiefs of Police. I'm sure there's studies and whatnot, but a police officer going back to school to get a degree. Many police departments that I know that are suburban partners, right, that we deal with, many of them already require a bachelor's degree to become a police officer in some instances. So some of our master degrees people that are coming in that are police executives in suburbs or police officers, they say, I needed a bachelor's degree to get on the job. Correct?
Correct.
Right. So that's already out there. It says here, I found another website. It's called careertrend.com, and a professor of criminology at Michigan State University named William Terrell conducted a survey of 2,109 police officers across the U.S. Despite the fact that none of the departments surveyed required a degree, right? The ones he surveyed didn't require a degree. 45% of the officers had a college degree. Half had majored in criminal justice, and the remainder of the officers had degrees in a range of disciplines from psychology to business. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that, as you know, some police departments, like big ones, they don't require the degree. Like some only want the 62, 65 odd credit hours, and that's it. And they may not require a degree for promotion, or vice versa. Sometimes they don't require the degree to come on, but they do require the degree for promotion. So there's some push there when it comes to the job. I have also seen that I noticed a lot of our younger students, so maybe, they're coming in at 25-ish, 26. I think it's a natural trend to just be pushed to get an undergraduate degree, no matter what it's in, no matter where you're going, to have the degree, because we know it's a good tool in the toolbox to have. It separates you. So even if your department didn't require a degree to get on, when they have hundreds of applicants, that's an easy way for a department head to kind of filter through all of that. So that they can see, all right, this guy's dedicated a little bit more time to himself, to his education, to his professionalism and growing. So let's get him on, or let's give him the interview instead. So those things, it does matter. And for those who don't have them already and are coming back to get them, a thing that I've noticed a lot is some people who may be wanting to leave the police department or just go on up, but they don't require that they have the degree on there. Sometimes they know that only their police experience, no matter how many years it was and no matter how valuable it is, sometimes isn't enough, especially if they're planning to change careers or move to a different spot within the police department. So unfortunately, it's not enough. I'd love to say that, yeah, all the 20 years that you put into this job and you dedicated is going to be what sets you apart from everybody else. Sometimes it isn't. And that extra tool in the toolbox is what makes you different. And that little thing could make all the world of a difference between you getting the job or promotion.
I have to break for station identification real quick, and then we're going to circle back to this conversation. This is WVLP, Valparaiso Community Radio. You can find us at wvlp.org to find our programming, and you are listening to Everyday Warriors, hosted by Danny McGuire, with my guest, Jackie Cruz, today. And we are talking about an array of topics from being a special needs step parent and parent to education of police officers and Calumet College of St. Joseph in Whiting. And we left off here talking a little bit about, police officers going back to school, making a choice to get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. So I just gave out, in millions, how many people had degrees. So if I put that in a percentage, just to kind of make it look, more presentable, 9% of the population in the United States, 9%, there's 330 million approximately, right? So you have bachelor's degrees, 29.8 million. So if we round that to 30 million, right? And we say 9% in 2000 of the population had bachelor's degrees. Fast forward to 2018, 15% of the population had bachelor's degrees. So essentially, if you look at trends and you understand how that works, well, what's it going to be 18 more years from now, right? In 2036, maybe it's going to be, I don't know, 50% of the population has bachelor's degrees, right? So where do you end up? I've always had this idea that law enforcement was you talk about when I was joking and talking about professional degrees like MDs and lawyers and stuff and how smart they are. I've always had this opinion, and I want to bounce it off you, Jackie, that police officers are just as professional, if not more professional, than these so-called professional degrees like MDs, and not to insult MDs or lawyers, that their education and their experience is, not unique. However, the recall knowledge you need to be a police officer is huge. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm a doctor and someone comes in, and I have friends that are doctors, MDs, and someone comes in and says, hey, I'm not feeling well. They do their x-rays, they do this, they check their books, they do this, and they come up with a diagnosis based on their research and what they've done, and especially if they're a specialist. A police officer doesn't have that time every day on the street. They go to an academy. Chicago, I think it's like 26 weeks. It might be more now. When I went, it was 26 weeks. When I went to my first academy, the Sheriff's Police Academy in Cook County, and became a state certified police officer, I believe it was 10 weeks or 12, right? So I went to Chicago, and it was like over double. Okay. Almost 3 times as much. And when I did that, you learned everything you needed to learn about being a police officer in that time. And then now you're on the street, you have field training, all those things. And now you're basically thrown to the wolves immediately. So the recall knowledge that you need to have to function in that environment, I mean, you're taking someone's freedom, forget a shootout, right? I mean, how often does that happen? If you listen to contemporary people, they would tell you it happens on a daily basis. People are being murdered by the bushel by the police. That's simply not true. Right. It's simply false, right? It's simply false. And that's a reality and factual information. And anyone that wants to debate, I'll give you my email address later, and you can debate me on it, and I'll give you all the statistics in the world, but it's simply false, right? But arresting someone happens usually on a daily basis. So you need to understand that you're taking someone's freedom. You need to understand the laws they've broken, how you can articulate it on a piece of paperwork, or, now computerized, write a report, in the King's English on why this happened, then go to court, and everything has to be, you swear in, facing charges of perjury if you lie. This is an incredible amount of stress. And my first guest I ever had, Officer Jeff from Chicago, we were talking about the hats. Now they're trained to do medical response, like what a paramedic would do if someone shot. I mean, social worker, marriage counselor, domestic violence advocate. You're wearing like 20 different hats. And then on top of it, you have this gun, which is a huge responsibility. You have this incredible sense of stress on a daily basis that no one has. I mean, you're putting on a bullet resistant vest and putting yourself between life and death with someone. It's a perfectly good stranger. So it's not even a friend. It's not even someone right? Yeah. And it could happen any given minute. So I've always had this contention that with all of that on their mind and all of the training they've had and everything that they need to have that kind of knowledge, right, is extraordinary. It goes beyond any kind of professional education someone could have. Do you agree?
Absolutely. No, I always like to say that, I guess police officers have that rough around the edges persona, right? Like people are always like, these police officers are they're hard and mean, abrasive people. I know them on a different personal level, but I think the complete opposite. I think police officers have the ability to read the room quickly very well, which is something that not a lot of people know how to do. They do have to, like a flip of a switch, like change mentalities and change what they're doing and figure out the situation quickly, safely. It's not something most people can do. You brought up a great point that made me think of a time in my undergrad when I was thinking about becoming a police officer. And the class that made me change my mind. I took a criminal law class where we were learning just all about law and what's legal, what's not legal. And we had a lot of, practice exam, practice tests and quizzes about, you're in a situation, this is what happened. Is this a law being broken or not? And I remember doing it. It was just always these small little tweaks that made it yes or no. And I was like, well, this stinks. Like if I had to do this in exactly that type of situation, I'm from Chicago originally. And that's the type of cop that I know. I've lived in all places in Chicago and
Southside.
Seeing what just happens on the streets of Chicago and what you have to deal with. I was like, oh, heck no, I will never be a police officer. Like if I have to do this, if I have to think about is this person breaking the law? How do I deal with it? Oh no, what if they pull the gun at me? What if they have a weapon? What if there's a child in this situation? Like, just so many variables that have to like run through your head at a quick at a quick pace. Yeah, it's incredible to me that people are able to do it, and that people continue to do it after already having done it. So yeah, it's a skill that not a lot of people have, and it's not something that, yeah, you just go through training or you take a class and you figure it out. I mean, obviously there's parts of that that are true, but it takes a special type of person to go ahead and do that every single day.
100%. And, you know, a lot of people will tell me, once they meet me, they'll say, oh, you know, you're such a nice person for having been a cop. You know, I hear that from my civilian friends, and I laugh because I'm like, what do you mean? You know, they're like, well, a lot of the cops I know are always angry and upset. And I'm like, well, if you had to deal with this crap all day, how would you
Yeah,
feel? Right.
absolutely.
You're someone's marriage counselor. You're someone's punching bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to, and you said it, you learn rapidly how to judge how stuff's going to happen immediately.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're going to put handcuffs on somebody and take them to jail, you can't use the MUS method, right? Make up stuff, right? But there's another word for the S, but make up stuff, right? You don't use the MUS method. You have to have a clear knowledge of the law. You have to have a clear knowledge of what they did to break the law. You know, especially if you're going to be the complaint. If you have someone signing complaints, you still have to be cognizant of the law and what it is. They just can't go, I want to sign complaints on Jackie because she frowned at me and it made me feel bad. Okay, Jackie, you're going to jail for the better part of your life. You're going to an electric chair. No, you know what I mean? Like, come on. So it's a very, very strenuous and difficult. Not that other public safety jobs are not difficult and strenuous. Like, I have these debates with firefighters all the time. Like, I can't imagine running into a burning building. I mean, you know, have as a police officer, yes, I have. You know, I've gone into a house on fire to get somebody out. Sure. But I never thought at that time my life was, you know, solely in danger, and the house wasn't completely engulfed in flames. So our brothers in red, you know, the firefighters, they, you know, brothers and sisters, sorry, they are, you know, they earn their pay too, and it's a strenuous job, and they see just as much traumatic events as police officers do. EMS, you know, someone's there having, you know, a seizure or something's going on, or someone's shot a gunshot. You know, I mean, if you ever seen anybody shot, it's not a pleasant thing. So it's very difficult. And I recall one of my former supervisors, you know, I'll say his name. He you know, he's an alum of Valparaiso University, right? In Valpo, right? Lieutenant Efred Bossy. When we were training, he was the HBT coordinator, and HBT stood for Hostage Barricade Terrorist Team, and it stood for that because they changed the name later to SWAT, right? It's just SWAT, industry standard. So HBT was Hostage Barricade Terrorist Team, and I was on the team, and Columbine had happened. So you might not even been born, but I remember training for, you know, after Columbine, North Hollywood shooting incident, we developed a system on how to respond to active shooter events and all this stuff. And, you know, guys in the SWAT team were going in this, back then it was the diamond technique. You're in this diamond, someone's facing backwards, someone's facing forward, and you're going and clearing rooms as you pass them. And everything you're doing goes against everything you've been trained, like clear this room, you know, clear this room, do this, do that, right? Like, you know, make sure this, well, you're just going to gunfire, pushing, step over people that are injured, don't run to aid. Everything that you've learned is now gone out the window. So I remember one of the guys on the HBT team says to Lieutenant Bossy, he says, yeah, you know what? We used to call him Colonel. So, you know what, Colonel, that don't seem like it's too safe over there doing that. And Bossy says, you know, I have to leave the adjective he used when he called the man, but he had a very colorful wit about him in response. But he said, if you want a guarantee, take the day off.
What a good response.
Said, right? He said, if you want a guarantee, take the day off, in response to this man's question about doing something safely, especially in that scenario. I mean, think about it. Do you have somebody shooting in a school or somebody shooting in a mall? Something's going on. People are dying. Police officers are charging to the gunfire and putting themselves between, you know, the potential victim of a homicide and some, I mean, purely evil person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible amount of responsibility. Now take that and then they say, hey, I'm going to go back to school and get an education. That's a very special individual, at least in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
No, yeah, it takes a lot.
And of course I'm biased because that's my background. It's my family business. My dad was a police officer. Between Cook County, Chicago, and the federal government, my dad did over 40 years of service, probably something like 45 or 47, if you throw in the Army time in there too, so, I mean, it's the family business. So of course I'm biased, of course, but I challenge people to really look at that and tell me you find another job that does that. It's incredible.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to do all that. I mean, as well as I do, we've heard some crazy stories, and I won't say the name of this student, but she was just one of those that she was astounding to hear everything that she's been through just in her life, the type of person that she is. She's a mom, a wonderful mom at that. I've seen her with her kids. I've met her kids, but she was severely injured on the job, got dragged by a car and had a brain injury, and still finished her semester. When she called me and told me, hey, I just want to talk to you about what's going on. I'm trying to figure out. She never called me and said, hey, I want to drop my classes. I have this traumatic brain injury that happened to me. I'm physically injured as well, and I'm going to drop my classes. No, she said, hey, all this stuff happened to me, and I just want to talk to you about what options do I have to get through my semester. And I was like, wow. Like, what type of strength this woman has is just incredible, because not many people that student. Will do that.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I know you do. She's my favorite.
She's one of my heroes.
She's one of the few people. She's brought tears to my eyes. She just graduated with her undergrad not too long ago. She was at our graduation ceremony last year. Brought tears to my eyes to see her finish up. See her there with her kids, her daughters, who I know are so proud of her. Just a wonderful woman. And I mean,
I believe she has a special needs child too. I'm not speaking for her.
Yeah, she does. She does. Right. Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. But I just
I'm
couldn't
gonna try to get her on this show.
You should. Yeah, I'm sure she has some stories to tell. But I mean, I was during quarantine when she did that, and she gave me this call. And I remember like turning back to my husband, like, did you just hear the phone call that I had? I'm like, what type of strength? Because if that happened to me, I'd be like, hey, I'm sitting out a semester too. I need to recover. And she's like, no, I'm going to do physical therapy and figure out how I'm going to do all of this. And she still, I think she pulled an A in that class, if I remember correctly.
100%.
She's just an astonishing person. So, I mean, like, these are the type of people that you're like working around all the time. And it's like, I have zero excuse ever to be lazy or like,
right. To
like
fail, right? Failure to have like I'm
just going to take a me day. Like, no, like there are people out there who are struggling and dealing with real life.
What's a
real
me
life
day?
issues? So, it's definitely inspirational to work around these people and just hear what they have to go through. And so that they get up every morning like, yeah, I'm going to go do it again. I got shot at yesterday, but that was yesterday. Today's a new day. Like,
100%, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Right. That was another good one that someone in my leadership time when I was a young police officer would say, McGuire, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Now quit your complaining and get it done. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And, it's an honor to be exposed to those people, but it's also an honor for them to be exposed to you and have you helping them through this, navigate this, because, what I hear from people is that, okay, so I surveyed everybody, and I think this, but for our listeners, I had surveyed our student population in our degree completion accelerated formats, both graduate and undergraduate. So I would say 99.9% of them are police officers full-time, and probably 90% are Chicago. So I asked them a simple question. Why do you go back to school? And I gave them options. The top 3 reasons why a police officer goes back to school, right? This was the response. Number 1 was for promotion purposes. Number 2 was to prove something to themselves or their family. When I followed up, like, what do you mean to prove something to yourself or your family? The answer was, well, I have a son that's 16 years old and he's, I want him to go to college and he's kind of on the fence about going to college. And I said, well, there's trades. And he's like, yeah, but I want him to go to college. So I told him, I'm going to go finish college and then you're going to go to college. And he's like, nice. Well, Dad, or mom, if you go to college and you finish college, then I will go to college and finish college. So I'm proving that. And plus to myself, because I haven't been in school in 20 years. Some of them say 15 years.
Yeah.
So, and I never went to college. So at Calumet College, we give them credit for their experience as a police officer. They can write a LEAP paper, which is experiential paper, and get credits awarded that way. Plus their academy training, not just Chicago, all police departments. So we give them credit for their experience, credit for their training, credit for initial trainings like FEMA training, things of that nature. So any extra classes they have, we tabulate it and come up with it. For our law enforcement executives, we give them up to 6 credit hours in the graduate program. We award them 6 credit hours for police staff and command, or FBI, or Southern Police Institute, PERF, things like that. So these are all law enforcement centric executive leadership classes. So you have these people going back, and it's a unique experience for them. And to have students, it's an honor to have some of these students in there. I mean, they are the real heroes, aren't they, Jackie?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And especially those instances when I have a lot of stories about that, of people coming back for their families. I had a guy graduate recently who they had a really nice family day because they had 3 graduations in a household. And I thought that was, just wonderful. He continued on to his master's, by the way, too. So that's good. He has another one coming on his way.
He sure did.
Yeah, they're absolutely just wonderful people to work around and be inspired by, especially when they're coming back after 10, 15, 20 years out of school. Because, I mean, you got to imagine school and its culture, and just even the way that things happen now are completely different than they were 10, 15, especially 20 years ago. So, I mean, they're just learning everything all over again. I mean, those of us who aren't, constantly in school, when's the last time you wrote a paper? Like if you haven't written a professional college level paper in years, you got to imagine how difficult that is to
August for me.
To turn
when
back
I got
around.
when I got my third master's, Jackie, August was the last time I wrote a paper.
Your
and if I never write
a
a paper again for a collegiate program, I'll be happy. 3 masters and a doctorate's enough.
You're a liar. Danny is going to be going back to school, I think, for the rest of his life. You are a learner.
Maybe. So the third reason, I never said what the third reason was. And the third reason they went back to school. So first one's for promotion and career enhancement, right, within their department, move up the ladder or get some sort of leg up on, some sort of lateral move. Number 2 was to prove something to themselves or their family. And number 3 was to do something once they leave the job. The trend, when I first got on the police department, Jackie, there wasn't a retirement age for Chicago.
Yeah.
So I remember there was a foot guy in one, and shamefully I don't remember his name, and I apologize for that. But I think he was like 69 or 70 years old. And there's no retirement age. You didn't have to retire. So he was still working. And it was pretty incredible to see that guy downtown, or, whatever he was doing. It was pretty neat. But, there's not a lot of people that do that anymore. People are like, I'm going to do my 20 and get out of here. And I attribute that to the things they see, right? I mean, it's very difficult. You have, you have situations where you walk into things and you see the complete worst human condition. You see dead people, you see dead children, you see what people can do to other people without even having any remorse. So being surrounded by that, it takes a toll on your mental health. So I think as time goes on, and police officers are much healthier now. I talked about this with Officer Jeff. They make decisions a little differently. They are in better shape. They really like working out. They really like nutrition. And back in my day, it was like, let's go to the bar and just drown the pain away. I didn't see someone's head removed today, because I'm just going to take that demon and get rid of it. Well, now it's a lot different. So I think people are more conscious of mental health. They go to therapists more. I remember being a young police officer going to a therapist, paying out of pocket because I was petrified someone's going to find out and they were going to, fire me or think I was, crazy, but that wasn't the case at all. It's, it's very much a rumor and a stigma. But now people are more conscious of that. And they're like, you know what, I can retire at 55 years old and still have, a whole lifetime to do something else. And I did 30 years in law enforcement, and I can use that to do something else in my life. So that's kind of the third reason people do it. Like once my time is up here, I'm going to move on and do something else. And I need a college education to be marketable.
Absolutely.
In the real world outside of the police department.
Right. There's also just, I mean, there's been a change to the way that I think a lot of us understand how our lives are going to span out. Most people know that they're not going to retire at 50 and be done. It's not, I'm going to retire 50 and head down to Florida in a condo anymore. People know that it's time to start a second career. And I have that conversation a ton with students and then on both spectrums too. I have some young people already preparing where they're like maybe 20s and 30s. And then I have some people who are phasing out of a police department. Maybe they're in their late 50s and they're like, all right, I'm ready now. I'm ready to get this next tool. I need my degree and I'm ready to move on and try something different. Or I always wanted to do this, but that wasn't, my life then. I had kids and I needed something that I was going to get a good salary for. And that's what I did. And now I'm ready to move on. So, yeah, I mean, I think that type of conversation is being had all the time.
It's pretty cool. When I talk to people and they're like, why should I go back to school, Danny, and get an education? And I say, I do a lot of research because of my position at the college. I want to have an answer to questions when people ask me questions like that. So right. I met somebody who was a headhunter once, someone who, like a job placement person. And I said, what? And they, particularly for security firms. So people not like, like you're standing at the bank as a security guard, like high level security, protection, big buildings downtown. So I met this person and I asked her, I said, hey, what do you look for? Just give me a thumbnail sketch. So this way, when I'm talking to my students, I can give them an idea of what they need to do as they move on. And she said, well, the first thing we do is we have, category, requirements for the job. You need a bachelor's degree, 5 years of experience, some technology stuff, whatever it may be. Fine. Then we have preferred, like what we'd like. We'd like you to have a master's degree. We'd like you to have 10 years of experience. She goes, and we'll make piles of resumes. We have people who are not qualified at all. They just apply for the job. Those go right on the side and they're just there. Then we have a pile of our requirements and then one with preferred and then one that's above and beyond. Like she was someone like you would apply with a doctorate and all these years of experience. We're going to just look at that, is this person overqualified for our job? But we usually look at the preferred requirements, someone who's gone above and beyond what the minimum is. So that's what I tell people. When you want to separate yourself in life after police department, how are you going to do that? Tell me. And that's usually what kind of separates people and makes up their mind on, yes, I'm going to go to school. So Jackie, we've got like 2 minutes left. So I want to ask you this. What if someone wants to contact Jackie Cruz at Calumet College of St. Joseph and ask her some questions about education or anything else? How would they contact you?
They can email me. My email is jcruz@ccsj.edu, or I can be reached on my cell. That number is 219-713-7739.
Perfect. And what advice would you give to a law enforcement professional who says, hey, I'm thinking about going back to school in 30 seconds? What would you tell them?
Contact me. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what your needs are, how we can get them met, and start looking through your old files so we can get some of those old certificates that you thought were not going to be needed. We'll use those for college credit. Awesome.
Perfect. Jackie, thank you for coming and talking to the listeners today. My mom and probably my uncle Chip in Kentucky. I hope you're doing well, Uncle Chip, and my cousin Carol, and maybe 3 or 4 other family members, but that's about it. I'm only kidding.
McGuire family reunion.
That's right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Jackie, for coming. Danny. Okay. This is WVLP, Valparaiso Community Radio, and I am your host, Danny McGuire. You are listening to Everyday Warriors, the show that highlights the heroes of every day. We don't do athletes. We don't do politics. We don't do politicians. We don't do music stars, and we don't do movie stars. We do the real people that make the world go round every day, the real heroes. And stay tuned next week when we interview Monica Lopez, who works at Calumet College with me, a retired Chicago police officer. And she herself has an incredible, unique story and skill set that we'll talk about next week. This is Everyday Warriors. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.